Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live training called Insatiable, Owning the Fullness of Who You Are. And I'm so excited because I'm putting this training also on the podcast because one of the reasons why I love doing free trainings like this is obviously to deliver you incredible content and to start to give you tools and practices that you can begin to integrate into your everyday life. And I just thought this would be such an incredible different thing to put on the podcast as well, considering all of my podcasts are either solo episodes of content or interviews. And how fun would it be to have a training style episode as well. So just to give you a little bit of a heads up, we have just about an hour for this training, and unfortunately have to keep it as close to an hour as possible. So if you have any questions that come to you after, or you're watching the replay, you can head over to the Red Revolutionary Woman Facebook group and ask me there. Of course, you can always reach me via social media or email if you have questions that come up for you after. So I wanted to do this training because I know for myself and so many of my clients that I was speaking with, we were all coming up against this like internal block, internal barrier where it's like things are good, we have a lot in our lives and we want more. And this like fear of being greedy, this internal kind of like upper limit that we've set for ourselves of like, what's allowed, but if we want more than that, then that's too much, or it won't be okay, it won't be acceptable. And when I was doing some of my own inner work and practices, one word that kept coming up was like insatiable, insatiable, insatiable. And I realized for a very long time I had a fear of being insatiable, right? Like not satisfied. So for this training, obviously that is the word that we're using, but to me, what it means is really owning the fullness of who you are. So your full expression, the fullness of your desires, the fullness of your brilliance, of your magic in the world. Because again, what I see so often for beautiful, smart, spiritual, conscious women is the ways that we hold ourselves back, make us small, stifle our expression for fear of making others uncomfortable, being judged, being shamed, being criticized, right? So this training is actually going to end up focusing a lot on shadow work, because to me, when we move through and integrate these shadow pieces of being afraid of being greedy or being afraid of being too much, what it opens up is our full expression. Okay. So today we're going to go through a bunch of things. I have a really great journal exercise. We have a few practices and meditations. We're definitely going to end it with a dance break, because to me, being magnetic, being a woman who owns the fullness of who she is, it is this intertwining of the sacred feminine, ritual, ceremony, and pleasure and turn on, right? So for me, the way that I navigate the world and what I'm so passionate about is being spiritually grounded and a woman who's alive and turned on at the same time, right? It's not one or the other. It's both and. Does insatiable mean greedy as well? I accuse a lot in my young age, a lot from your older sister. Yeah. So I think the true definition of insatiable is like never being satisfied. And we're going to talk about that, right? Because you can be satisfied and wanting more, right? And there is this dance that we get to do of being in gratitude for what we have while desiring more, while expanding. Okay. So buckle up, get ready, get your notebook, get a glass of whatever you want, coffee, tea, champagne. I have water. And let us dive in. So first, what I'd love is if we just took a moment to really ground in to where we are and what we're about to do. So let's just go ahead and close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, hand on pussy or womb if you want. And just taking a few deep breaths in. And when you breathe in deeply, I want you to bring that breath all the way down to your pussy. And exhale. Exhale everything that is no longer serving you, that you don't need to worry about for the next 50 minutes. Inhaling down to pussy, grounding yourself in your body, and exhaling, releasing the tension, the stuck and stagnant energy. And on this next inhale, I want you to just tune in and see if you have any intentions for this ritual, event, workshop, training, whatever you want to call it. If you have any intentions that want to bubble up right now, allowing yourself to open to receive everything that you need to receive, allowing yourself to become present. Knowing that right now in this moment, you are enough. You are worthy. You are magnetic. You are powerful. And you get to have everything that you desire. So with that, I want you to come back to the present moment. And if anybody has any specific intentions that they want to share this morning, this afternoon, please feel free. And of course, no pressure to share any intentions.
Hi.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Good. So I was going to share that I guess my main goal for this season is to connect to my sensual and sexual feminine being, kind of to take my business to like empower others
Yeah.
to take it to the next level.
I love that. I love that. And it's so on point with what we're doing today. So you will be so ready. Anybody else have any intentions? And again, feel free to use the chat and I'll speak it out loud, or you can just unmute yourself and share your intentions. Gotta put my glass on so I can read. My intention.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Michaela, go
Hi.
ahead.
So my intention would be to maybe tune in to my feminine energy, my sexual energy as well,
Yeah.
to become magnetic, basically.
Yay. Perfect.
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
what I want.
We're all right, like right here, right ready for it. I love it. And somebody shared their intention is expansion, accepting my own qualities, my value, being outrageous, feminine as much as I have become masculine. Totally, totally, totally. So thank you all so much for sharing your intentions. And again, use the chat box the whole time. I can really only read them when I have my glasses on. So whenever I put them on, you know I'm reading. Okay, so before we begin, I just want to because some of you, I noticed some new faces, some new names here on the trainings. And again, since this is going on to the to be centered in my body and embody the wholeness in me. I love that. And since this training is going to be put on the podcast, I just figured I would give you all a very abbreviated version, right, of who I am and again, why we're doing this training. So as you probably already know, my name's Lauren Joyce, and I'm founder of The Magnetic Woman, which is a lifestyle and an empowerment brand for women. And I help women reclaim their power through pleasure. Now, if you would have told me that this is what I was going to be doing even 10 years ago, I would have thought you were insane. So I grew up going to Catholic school, like 10 years of Catholic schooling. Now, my home life, my parents were not very religious, but when you have 5 days a week, 10 years of your life of religion class and every other class being steeped in Catholicism, it is near impossible to escape unscathed and to escape without having deeply internalized a lot of the religious programming, right? And to me, so much of the religious programming that I see as misogynistic, right? Like the hatred of or degradation of women is also deeply steeped into our society and has been for the last at least 2,500 years, all the way back to probably like 4,000 or 5,000 years, right? So I grew up the quintessential good little girl, right? Straight A's, a pleasure to have in class, line leader, teacher's pet, like you name it. And I grew up with a lot of seeing the majority of the women adults around me unhappy, unfulfilled, just kind of existing through life. And I assumed that that is what you did as a woman. The idea of being feminine or anything feminine was so ugh to me, right? Because I was learning all day in school that the feminine, quite frankly, was evil and would lead you to hell. And then in the world, I was seeing it as powerless and overly emotional, crazy, like, and I didn't want to be any of those things, right? So I buckled down on what I knew, which was my intelligence, school, working hard. And I just assumed I would take the road most commonly traveled. So I went to college and I graduated top of my class and then started working in that career field and was at the top of that field. And, just taking all the right steps that the good girl takes, all the while really trying to function, obviously, in my masculine because I wanted nothing to do with the feminine. And at that time, I wasn't religious, but I didn't really believe in anything either, right? So there I was. And then 25, life served me up the most intense experience of my life, to say the least. And it's when my dad died. He and I were very close. He was an incredible man, an incredible father. And I was left rocked to my core. I had no idea what to do. Like none whatsoever. I was 25. I had never experienced any kind of grief, right? Let alone for somebody who I loved so much and was such an important person in my life. And again, I looked around to see how other women had handled it, and I did not see anyone in my life really navigating grief in a way that I thought I wanted to do, right? Everybody just seemed like stuck in their lives. And so within a month after his death, I was in grief counseling because, again, as the overachiever I am, I was like, let me sign up for something. And I remember sitting across from the woman and saying to her, I have no idea how this is possible yet because I am in so much pain, but I only want this to make me a better person. And that might sound weird or crazy because, again, I had no idea how it could happen. And I was like, and I only want to do things in my life that make me happy. Losing my dad, he was in his 50s. It really had me wake up to the fact that no time is guaranteed, right? So fast forward a few months, I find myself in Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, which if you've heard or read the book Pussy at Reclamation, the author Regina Thomas Hauer, her company is called Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts. She had not written the book Pussy yet, mind you. So there I was, 25 years old, good little Catholic girl in a room where she comes on stage and starts talking about how a woman's connection to her power is her connection to her pussy. Now, you can imagine everything inside of me was like, get the fuck out of this room. Like, run, run, run. But something deep inside of me was like, this is what you've been looking for your entire life and didn't even realize it. And again, being the good little student I am, I was like, well, I signed up and I paid for the course, so I might as well come back for day 2. And my life changed forever. Because not only did I start learning about ancient cultures and civilizations that revered women and the goddess, and not only did I learn how to move my emotions through my body and actually honor the grief that I was feeling, but I started to uncover things I had never heard about, like desire, not wanting or goal setting, like desires, sensuality, sexual energy, like all of these things, again, that it felt like I had just opened up a treasure chest that I had no idea existed. And I noticed that through learning this stuff, through embodying these principles and practices, I began to feel happier than I had ever felt, more confident than I had ever felt. And I thought, if these principles can take me from like the depths of grief and despair to this, I have to teach other women how to do this. I have to give other women this information. So here we are. Oh, thank you. I know. I don't know what in me at 25 years old had me do this, but here we are, and thank the goddess. So fast forward, it'll actually be 11 years next week since my dad passed away. And here we are. I run a company based helping women reclaim their power through pleasure. And one thing I've gotten very passionate about over the last 5 years is also helping women heal that religious trauma and conditioning. And even if you were not raised very religiously, if you didn't attend a religious school or whatever, the religious principles that are misogynistic, the religious ideas that tell a woman to disconnect from her body, to deny our power, to disown our sexuality, are steeped in culture and society, right? And have been for the last 2,000 years. Exactly. And so to me, being magnetic, being insatiable, owning the fullness of who you are, it is very much a reclamation of pleasure and embodiment. And it's a spiritual journey, because what I found is, in order for me to embrace pleasure in my life, I had to confront the religious programming that was telling me it was morally wrong to do so. And when I confronted this and I was like, okay, well, I don't believe that, I was left with this void spiritually, right? Where it was like, okay, I'm not Catholic, I'm not religious, I'm not going to subscribe to organized religion, but I know that they're spiritually, I do want some kind of connection. Right. And so for me, that's where what I call the sacred feminine came in. So the sacred feminine is, in my opinion, or the way I view it, it is a spiritual connection to a higher power. I usually call it the goddess. You can call it divine, you can call it love, whatever. And it is reclaiming things that have also been passed out of our culture and society. So rituals, honoring of the seasons, honoring of the cycles, honoring of my own menstrual cycle, right? These are things that ancient cultures used to do and used to be their spiritual practices, because prior to Christianity becoming the religion of the Roman Empire in 300, prior to that, most cultures and societies were polytheistic, meaning they worshipped many gods and goddesses. And if you go back just a little bit farther, past the Greeks, most cultures and society worshipped the goddess. The goddess was the supreme being, because they looked around in nature and said, where does the next generation come from? It is born from the female of the species. Therefore, if we believe we're coming from something divine, it must be female, right? And so again, when we look at where women feel disconnected from their power, to me it's two places that again are intertwined. It's a disconnection from a divine figure that is we are in like image of, and it is a disconnection from our body, our sensuality, and our pleasure and sexuality, right? And again, those two things go hand in hand, because if we look at ancient cultures and societies, the goddess was sexual. The goddess typically had a consort who she was engaged in sacred sexuality with. And that is what created the world and humanity and this. So not only were women seen as divine, but our sexuality and pleasure was seen as sacred, right? And so for me, this is why I'm so passionate about helping smart, powerful, driven women reclaim this sense of not just feminine energy and magnetism, but a sacredness in pleasure and sexuality. Because to me, that is what I feel like grounds us spiritually and allows us to be turned on, right? Does that make sense so far? Amazing. So as we move into the meat of this, I would love to hear from you. Just, you can take a moment. I know I sent some journal prompts yesterday. What are some of your biggest fears, biggest blocks, biggest barriers around owning the fullness of who you are? This could be your full expression. This could be your full sexiness. This could be your full power. This could be all of your desires. What stops you? What are the thoughts, the fears, the beliefs, the stories? I know for me, the record that continually plays is like, this is too much. People will hate me. That tends to be one of my biggest fears, right? The judgment, the criticism, the hatred from others. Oh, if I have this, I won't be liked, right? What else comes up for you?
I remember growing up in like my early teens and like not being afraid to express myself, right?
Mhm.
And people in my surroundings, particularly like in my relationship or whatever, like it's too much. Like you can't show that outside. You have to hide it. And
Mhm.
that's not okay. And so I was like, oh,
Mhm.
like because I didn't have that, because I didn't have this like group, I didn't have
Yeah,
any figures to guide me otherwise. I was like, well, I guess like that's how you
it is.
do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so I buried it. I was like, nope, you don't talk about this. You don't dress this way. You don't do that. You don't show affection this way. Like, uh-uh. But
Mhm.
then it was confusing because in the movies, it's like that's what men
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, totally. Well, and there's, that innate inclination inside of you that's like longing for more. So the thing that we have to realize when we talk about masculine and feminine energies, and anybody else, feel free to write some of your fears or stories in the chat while I continue this. So everything and everyone has masculine and feminine energy, right? And masculine energy tends to be associated with strategy, structure, like that linear thinking, the more of the like drive, get it done, protection energy, right? Fear. So you have a fear of not fulfilling your mission. Yes, I hear you on that. And I have a similar fear, right? And then the feminine energy is one, receptive, right? It is embodied, it's in our bodies, it's more flowy. And oftentimes when people talk about feminine energy, they talk about the softness and the surrender. But feminine energy is also fiery, bold, wild. That righteous rage is deeply feminine. And we're taught that the masculine leads. And I will die on this hill, that it does not. It is feminine desire that leads, right? If you've ever read the book, I think it's Think and Grow Rich or The Science of Getting Rich. It's one of those like old school prosperity books. They talk about the desire for more is innate, right? Like everything in the world is evolving towards more life. The plants, right? They're like, they bloom, they grow, they flower, the seeds fall. When those seeds fall, it's to create more life, right? Next spring. So everything is moving towards creating more life. And if feminine desire is what leads, like that is, think about it, our desires then being continually more and evolving is just natural, right? My mother wants us to express our feminine side, and my elder sister was a guardian all the time when I was in my playfulness, my freedom to scare me. Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that we have to realize, right? We have all of these fears, all of these stories around being too much, being too fully expressed, and the undertone being that it's dangerous if we do that. And typically that message came from women in our lives, our mothers, our grandmothers, female teachers, right? For the majority of the last 2,000 years, in a lot of ways, it was dangerous for women to be their fullest expression. Women in the 1600s who dared to allow themselves to experience pleasure more than likely were put on trial for being a witch, right? Women who dared to allow themselves to desire something more than getting married and having children in the 1400s would have been cast out and more than likely died on their own, right? So we have to understand that the fears that we're experiencing of not wanting to be too much, of being too sensual, too sexual, too whatever, those are living in ourselves because that fear was passed down from generation to generation of women as a form of protection. Okay? Now, it is very true that we still live in a patriarchal world, that there is horrific violence against women, that we live in a rape culture, right? So this is not discounting or discrediting any of the violence that happens against women. And for the most part, the ways in which we would have been punished in the past for being our full expressions, at least here in the Western world, that's not the case anymore. They're not burning us at the stake currently in 2023, right? They're trying to strip us of our rights in a lot of ways, but they're not burning us at the stake, right? And for a lot of us, and especially if you're here watching this, chances are you have financial freedom in the sense that you have a job, you have the ability to make money, you have your own bank account, which our grandmothers were not allowed to have, right? And I'm just talking about the United States here, right? So in the 1970s, up until the 1970s, women weren't allowed to have their own bank account. They had to have a male cosigner, right? So, and they weren't allowed to have their own credit cards, and they weren't allowed to own property. So we have transcended so much of that in a very short period of time. And I know for me, sometimes it can be hard when these fears come up and they feel so crippling. They feel so visceral. And it's like, how can I feel this way? How can I think this way? Like, look at what's possible. Look at this person. And it's like, okay, but this is not just my conditioning. This is a protection mechanism that was passed down for me for the last 2,000 years to try and keep me safe, right? And unconsciously, my mind is like, yo, we got thousands of years of data here telling us not to do this, right? And so I say that because I do want you to be really gentle with yourself in this process, really compassionate with yourself, in really beginning to own the fullness of who you are and your desires. And again, because there still is so much conditioning around our pleasure, our sexuality, our sensuality. And to me, that is like the key to the fullness of who you are, the key to your power. You're going to come up against what feels like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen to me. This feels dangerous. This feels not okay. Right? And so that's why in the program Sacred Pleasure, which is now going to be the foundational course of the Red Temple, my membership, the membership site, I'm giving you the tools to really begin to regulate your nervous system, to do that inner child work where you're returning to a sense of safety inside of yourself as you grow. So this is never going to be, at least I don't think so, whenever I have no fear around being the fullest expression of myself, that's when I get to be the fullest expression of myself. It's how do I hold and navigate the fear and the visceral response that's coming up while I do things that by even today's standards are rebellious. I have no doubt that every single one of you listening to this is the only one in your family, or maybe one of two in your family, that is breaking the generational codes, that is healing the ancestral trauma, that is choosing to live a different way. I have no doubt in my mind that you are one of the few in your intimate circle, which is why you're here online looking for that community, right? And it's not that it's bad or wrong or that you're somehow so weird. It's just that you're first. You're first, right? So it's also why being in community is really, really important. So the first exercise I want to take us through right now is actually a journaling exercise. So again, we tend to hear when it comes to our desires, the fullness of who we are, our sensuality, our pleasure, that if we do this, we'll be hated, we'll be judged, we'll be criticized, something bad will happen to us, it will be dangerous, correct? So what I want you to do right now, I'm going to give you about 3 minutes just to start this journal prompt, and you can come back to it anytime. So I want you to go ahead and at the top of the page, or, wherever you are, write something like, you can choose to change the words around. Me owning the fullness of who I am and receiving all of my desires helps the world because.
Can you repeat from the beginning?
Yep, I'll type it in here too. Me owning the fullness of who I am / receiving all of my desires helps the world because. So, for example, I can just, start you off. So, me receiving all of my desires will help the world because I will be happier, more grounded, more fulfilled, meaning I can show up more for the women I'm helping, meaning I can show up better as a partner, as a daughter. Me being my fullest expression helps the world because my feminine radiance ignites other women. Okay. Can just bring that to a close for now. And I would highly recommend like using that journal prompt every day for a week or every day for 21 days or a month. So is there anything that came up that surprised you when you started to look at how you being your fullest expression would help those around you instead of the fear side, the shadow side?
I like in my mind when building my business and my brand, I always knew what I wanted to do, but I never actually said it out loud. And like writing it down, it came out so naturally, which I was very surprised because again, I've just like kept it in my head and never really told anybody that this is it. But to like get it down on paper feels really empowering and helps make the vision so crystal clear. But it was hard for me to write what I wrote.
It's hard for you to write what you wrote? What do you mean?
Well, like it can't, like it flowed, but like I could feel some resistance when I was writing it,
Yeah.
particularly like do you mind if I share?
Please, if you feel comfortable, share away.
Yeah. So particularly like the last three words of the sentence were hard for me, but it said it was being fully who I am slash receiving all of my desires helps the world because by being fully embodied as my divine feminine self, I can help raise the vibration of this world too. And this is where I typically like I felt the resistance to help reduce rates of addictions, suicides, and oppression.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never said that out loud, but like it felt
Mm.
good to get it down on the paper, but still I'm kind of scared to say it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So just go ahead and tune in for a moment here if you're open to it and see what part of you is resistant to that.
Because a lot of it is stuff that I experienced.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid of like people judging me, one for experiencing it, and two for like being rebellious against it when I'm so used to like quiet, 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 quiet.
Yeah. 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 So we're going to do a meditation where we work with the resistant part. So I'm going to have you put just a little pin in that for like another 2 minutes and then we'll take care of that part of you. Anybody else want to share something that came up for them around when they started to look at me owning the fullness of who I am and how that can benefitly or positively benefit the world?
I'll go ahead.
Yes.
So, well, the main thing that comes up for me is like modeling this for my family, my friends, and my daughter. Maybe, well, I don't have a child yet, but since I want to be a mother, I want my daughter to have a different experience. So, this is the main thing. But the surprising part was that I feel that I'm not only like healing my maternal line, well, the maternal line of my family for the people who are going to come, but also for the people who have gone already, the ancestors. And that's kind of surprising because how would you feel? You can heal somebody who's dead already, right? But
yeah,
I feel you can.
You can. You can. You can. You know, I truly feel like, especially for those of you who feel called to this space and my community, like you are who your ancestors prayed for. And without feeling like it's too much responsibility, right? It's like, and I'm tearing up too. It's like we get to live out things that even our grandmothers only dreamed about being possible. And of course we have the fear. You got me all choked up too, right? It's like, of course we have the fear in the programming that they will be mad at us or, see us as other. But on an energetic, on a soul, and especially for those who have already passed on, like it is healing for us to reclaim the parts of ourselves that we are told is wrong and bad and dirty and shameful. There are two, if you take away like 2 mantras from this, one, I want it to be something around me being my fullest expression positively benefits the world, right? Something like that. And you can play with the words. And 2, which it's very similar, but it's my radiance ignites the radiance in others. So I'm just going to tell you a very brief story, very, very short story to highlight that. And then we'll go into the meditation and kind of begin to wrap up. So when I was in Greece in April, I ended up being there on Orthodox Easter, and we went to this restaurant, and there was like all this dancing and fun. And there was this older woman, I don't know, probably in her like 70s, but it's Greece, so she might have been older and just like looked really good. I don't know, but she was, you know, dressed all in black, like very prim and proper, like beautifully like pressed dress or suit, I can't remember. And we're all dancing and having a great time. And she was just sitting there looking at us with this huge smile on her face. And we went over and took her hands and brought her onto the dance floor, right? And we started, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I was in Crete. And we just started telling her, myself and another woman that I was with, how beautiful she was, how she looked like a goddess. And you watched instantly this woman, again, in her 70s or 80s, who probably would have stayed sitting in the corner all night long, light up. She spent the whole time dancing. She kept coming over to find us to dance with us. We often are so afraid that our radiance is going to hurt others that we forget that our radiance ignites others, right? And both take energy, right? It takes energy to be afraid, to shrink down, to stifle yourself. And it takes energy to live in a space of turn on and radiance and to ignite others. Both take the same amount of energy, actually. So it's just a choice. Am I going to use my energy to stifle myself and therefore rob the world of my radiance? Or am I going to use my energy to ignite my radiance and realize that that is what ignites the world? Right? So I want to take us into this meditation because I know, Jamie, I told you to put a little pin in that resistant part of you, and I know you're not the only one with the resistance going on right now. So what I want you to all do right now is just take a deep breath as we let that kind of marinate and sink in, that your radiance ignites the radiance in others. And I want you to go ahead and I want you to tune in to the part of yourself that is fully expressed sensually, sexually, financially, in your work, in your business, in your relationships, in the world, right? This part of you that like so deeply trusts your power, your magnetism. You so deeply trust that you receiving your desires benefits others. So I want you to connect to this part of you. Okay? And as you connect to her, I want you to begin to scan your body and see where the resistance is coming up. If you don't have any resistance, that's okay. Just hang out with the fully expressed part of you. If you are having resistance, see where that sensation is coming up. Is it in your throat, in your chest, in your back? And I want you to see that sensation outside of yourself as something tangible. A color, a shape, you at a certain age, a person that you know or don't know. And I want you to ask this part of you What's the message that it has for you? What is it trying to tell you, trying to communicate with you? Ask it, what does it need from you? And ask it, what does it need in order to let the fully expressed part of you lead the way? And when that feels complete, I want you to return to the fully expressed part of you. Notice what she's wearing. What does she look like? And I want you to ask her, what does she need in order to lead the way more? Ask her if you have any specific questions, you need any advice on something, or you have something you've really been thinking about. You can ask her. And now what I want you to do is invite her back into your body. See where she likes to reside. Maybe it's your heart, your pussy, maybe it's your throat. And as you invite her back into your body, I want you to begin to turn the energy up. Turn up the sensation of you now being fully expressed. And as you turn this sensation up, I want you to begin to move. So we're going to just allow this fully expressed version of you to take root inside of you. And you can do small hip circles. You can just move your shoulders. And I'm going to let this song play for a few minutes. And I want you to move. You can get up and dance. You can just, again, stay seated and move. But this embodiment of being the version of you that's fully expressed, that's how I want you to move right now.
So bright she can burn your eyes. Better look the other way. You can stay. It's on top of the world. It's for the highest.
Okay, my loves. Let's come back. Let me know, how was that for you? Any questions, anything coming up? Any awarenesses, any shifts?
So much more awareness. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
My turned on part is in a cage most of the time. So something that, yeah, she wants freedom. I have to let her out. Playing, doing something, whatever. The fear is a protector.
Yeah, of course.
Protector part. Yeah, and she's just trying to, basically what she says is like, if you stay small, I'll protect you. So what she needs is more self energy, or a grown up showing that I can handle things.
Yeah.
So.
Beautiful. And I just also want to invite you into a great practice or journaling exercise for that part of you that wants to protect you, is looking at all the ways that you already do protect yourself, right? Like, what boundaries have you already placed in your life? What have you already set up in your life that is a protection, right? Because often that part of us that's like, you can't be trusted, or like, I have to do it. It just needs that reminder of like, no, yes, thank you. And I've got us, like that, with other day when that guy was rude and we said, no, that was, like, I got it. So just reminding and working with that part of you. The way that I work, and in all of my courses, in everything I do, right, it is about unconditional love and acceptance for all parts of us, specifically, and very much including the shadow elements and the parts of us that are doing everything in their power to, in a way, keep us small, but to protect us. And oftentimes those parts just need acknowledgement. Like, thank you so much for trying so hard to keep me safe. Right? And I have found, similar to with inner child work, that the more we affirm, the more we are in gratitude for, the less that part feels activated, right? Jamie, did you want to share something?
Yeah. Yeah, similarly, she was like, my highest embodied self was like, stop putting the fire out. Like, stop letting this person put the fire out, and then you specifically in this thing, like, stop dimming the light, please.
Yes.
She was like, stop it.
I love it. I love it. So it's so interesting, right? Like, breaking out of the cage, igniting the fire, right? And as I said earlier in this, we often hear of the feminine as like soft and surrendered. And the parts of us that are like clawing, pun intended, to get out are the wild, the fiery, like the parts that typically aren't labeled quote unquote feminine, but are at the core of our feminine power, right? So before we wrap up, I just want to invite you all, if you are wanting to go in deeper to this, I am running, for the only time live, a 4-week program in July called Sacred Pleasure. And it is this mergence of the sacred feminine and pleasure and embodiment practices. It's really the core of the magnetic woman, the foundational teachings. If you're in the Red Temple, it's already part of it, right? Because this is going to become the foundational course. So you can just join the course. You don't have to join the membership. You can do both. You can join the course and then decide to join the membership. And so there's early bird pricing for the next 2 days. We start July 1st. It's going to be 4 modules, 2 live calls. There will be a group of some kind, whether it be on Facebook or on my new membership site. I'm still deciding. So again, the point of Sacred Pleasure is, one, to give you like the nervous system regulation tools, the basic rituals and principles of being the most magnetic, fully expressed version of yourself, and doing it in a way that combines the sacred feminine, rituals, ceremonies, honoring of who we are as women and like the innate goddess within, and sensuality, pleasure, sexuality practices, right? So One thing for me personally is when I first started to do this work, I felt like the world was kind of this world of feminine energy was divided between the two. It was like either all sexuality work and very tantric, or I'll tell you, I'll email you, Niljan, and give you a full rundown. Or it was like sacred feminine, goddess circles, flower crowns, but there was like nothing about like body or pleasure or that like fiery energy. And for me, it's always both and. And so that is what sacred pleasure is. We're going to talk about how to create rituals in your life on a regular basis that fill you, that like fan that flame of your radiance and your fire. We're going to go through pleasure and embodiment practices where we break out of the cage. So I would say, honestly, Niljan, probably starting with sacred pleasure is going to be the best because it really is like the foundational course work, the foundational thing that, again, is going to become the first thing that you get whenever you join the Red Temple. So if you're in the Red Temple, which is the membership area, this is already included, so you don't got to worry about it. And if you want to do the course and join the membership later, you can, or there will be an option to do both. So with the replay, you'll be receiving a link to join the course. Again, I know 2 of you are already in the Red Temple, so don't worry about it. You're good to go. Just like get ready for July where we like seep into all of this. And if you have any questions, if you have any questions, you can let me know. And one last note, through the rest of the year, I have a lot of live experiences coming up. So I have a retreat in France at the first week of October. All of the links you will have access to. And I've started a Magnetic Woman dinner series. So we have a few places in July that will be, and through the fall. And this is like a group experience, think like half-day VIP experience, small group of women, laughing, drinking, talking about pleasure and sensuality and expansion and desires and all the things. So all the links are in the email with the replay for any of the live experiences as well. And of course, I do have one-on-one VIP day experiences to just like me and you dive in deep, ignite that fire, burst out of that cage, all that sexiness. And if you have any questions, shoot me a message on social media. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me. Or you can shoot me an email. Any last comments, questions?
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank
This was
you
great.
all for being here today. And remember, if you take away nothing other than one sentence, I want it to be, my radiance ignites the radiance in others.
Love that.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, we are friends from Gina Devi. You remember? I'm in this depth work from 2011, actually.
Okay.
We'll look at my feminine side and you know, embody the feminine side. I'm mostly running from my head and masculine energy. But sure, I didn't go so deep because my mind say, no, you don't need these things. You have to do your business. You have to do that, blah, blah. And finally, last, you know, maybe 1 year, I go deeper again because I see that I need it. But along the way, I took lots of course and reading and searching, mostly, you know, feminine and masculine energy have to be in balance, blah, blah. And, you know, it is so many work. And, you know, when is with all those work, I don't feel that I embody and I frustrate, you know, when is I feel that, okay, I can show myself, I can continuously do this, feel, you know, free to do that, not to search, go deep. I also see it's like, you know, it's like Persephone or Hera, go deep, and when you go deep, you cannot go out very, you know, early, and life is passing by beside.
Yes.
So, how can I, and I told you, I'm now 50 years old and I'm not really enjoying my life, and I would like to enjoy. And so although I'm in that depth work and have lots of investment and money, time investment, emotional investment, and really I would like to know when is the satisfaction.
When are you good? Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
You know, at least, you know, get the basic and own it, and then continue, you know, as I told you, exponentially, not to find out what is my way.
Totally. So first, I want to acknowledge you and everyone, because I know you're not alone in feeling like I've already done so much. I've done so much. I've invested so much time, money, energy. Like, when do I get it? When do I get the things that I have been working so hard for? And my first invitation is to move from thinking that there's anything else to heal or fix and into I am healed and enough for everything I desire. And so even if you decide to join Sacred Pleasure or the membership or do any other programs, doing it from a place of I'm choosing this because I'm excited about it and I think it's just going to make my life even better, instead of choosing from a place of I'm broken and I need this to fix me. Right? So that's the first thing, is it's just a mindset shift. And two, I would invite you to start looking at the pleasure you're already experiencing in your life, right? So we talked about how the definition of insatiable is like never being satisfied. And the truth of the matter is there is a shadow side to being insatiable, and that is that you are never in the present moment and you're always future tripping for the next thing that you want, right? What I'm talking about in terms of owning that insatiable energy is being in gratitude now, looking around your life and being like, I'm so grateful. This is what's pleasurable, incorporating pleasure in small ways every single day, and holding at the same time your desire for more and being in the enjoyment of desiring more. Right? So that, to me, that duality of being grateful and having pleasure now and desiring more, that's that like insatiable energy. That's like the fullness of who you are. I can be so present with who I am and where I am, knowing that my desires are meant for me. Right? So I would invite you to those two mindset shifts now, and then move from there. Like, don't join anything, don't do anything until you come into a place of like, I've done enough, I am enough. And if I decide to join this program or that program, it's not because I need to be fixed. It's because I see that this is going to amplify who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great.
Perfect. Okay, I do have to run, my loves. If you have any other questions, please, please, please post them in the Facebook group, shoot me an email, send me a thing on social media. Let me know how this goes. Let's check in the next few days, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.